It was just an ordinary night. Rain was falling lightly on the city streets. The wind was soft, the roads were quiet, and only a few cars moved under the flickering yellow lights. At 11:47 p.m., bus route 17 left the last main stop and headed toward the final terminal. There were 11 passengers on board. Some were tired, some were scrolling through their phones. And one little boy was playing with a blinking toy in his seat, the driver. A man named Victor Hale had been working this route for over 12 years. He was calm, quiet, and careful. As the bus approached Black Hollow Tunnel, a long old tunnel built under the hills, Victor glanced in the mirror. All passengers were seated, no problems. The bus entered the tunnel at 11:53 p.m. It came out the other side, 11:55 p.m. But there was no one inside. The driver's seat was empty. Every passenger seat was empty, yet the bus continued driving. Slowly but straight, like someone was still holding the wheel. It rolled across the quiet highway until it bumped gently into a safety barrier and stopped. Police were called. Emergency teams arrived. They searched the bus, expecting maybe a hijacking or accident. But everything was normal to normal. The seats still had bags, phones, jackets. A half-eaten sandwich lay on one seat. The little boy's blinking toy was still glowing, left on the floor. Not a single sign of struggle, no blood, no fingerprints from anyone other than the missing 12 people. Security footage confirmed it. Cameras near the tunnel entrance showed the bus going in, all passengers inside. 2 minutes later, a camera outside showed the same bus coming out, empty. One strange thing was found on one of the phones left behind. It had a recording the last 15 seconds before the tunnel. First, the normal bus noise, engine hum, light talking. Then, silence. A soft static sound came in, and then a whisper, very low, almost like wind. They're not supposed to see us. Voice didn't match anyone on board. Families of the missing were in shock. No one could explain what happened. All 11 passengers came from different parts of the city. A teacher, a factory worker, a high school student, a retired man. None of them knew each other. The daughter of the retired man told reporters something strange. Her father used to avoid Route 17, saying the tunnel made him feel watched. He said the walls spoke to him when he passed through it as a child. She thought it was just old man talk. An old traffic officer who had retired years ago saw the news and came forward. He said this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In 1998, a taxi entered the same tunnel and came out the other side without the driver. The car crashed into a tree. Everyone thought the driver had run away, but his wallet, keys, and coat were still inside. Nobody listened back then. Now, the same tunnel had taken 12 more people, and still no answers. Later that night, a young journalist named Mark, who had been following the story, received a strange phone call. The voice on the other end was calm, serious. "You're asking the wrong questions," the man said. It wasn't about the people. It was about the bus. Mark tried to ask who it was, but the line went dead. Suddenly, the lights in his apartment flickered. He stood up, confused. Then he heard it, brakes screeching. He looked outside. A bus was parked in the middle of the road, engine running, no driver, no passengers. It was the same bus. Mark didn't sleep that night. After seeing the bus outside his house, same number, same look, same scratches on the side, he had frozen in place for nearly 20 minutes. He watched from behind his curtain, heart racing. The bus engine stayed on. Its headlights were glowing yellow in the dark street, but no one came out. No one got in. No sound, no movement. Then, without warning, the engine turned off. The lights died, and just like that, the bus vanished. Not drove away, not towed, just gone. In one blink, it was there. In the next blink, the street was empty. Mark stood there for a long time, not believing his own eyes. The next morning, he started digging. He wasn't a famous journalist, just a local news writer who covered odd stories. But now, something was pulling him deeper into this, more than curiosity. It felt personal. Like the tunnel had noticed him. He decided to visit Black Hollow Tunnel. At 1:15 p.m., Mark parked his Car near the tunnel's north entrance. The area was quiet, too quiet. Though the tunnel was old, built during World War II, later expanded to allow two-lane traffic. It stretched about 1.8 kilometers under the forested hill known as Silent Ridge. Locals avoided it whenever they could. They said it felt colder than other places. Some said radio signals cut out there. Others spoke about headlights flickering when they passed through. No one ever stopped inside it. Mark took his camera and a recorder. As he walked closer, the temperature dropped. His arms got goosebumps. And the sound of wind disappeared. Even the birds went silent. He stood at the entrance. Black inside, no cars coming, no light from the other end. It looked like a mouth wide, waiting, quiet. He stepped in. The echo of his own footsteps filled the air. His recorder was running, his flashlight pointed forward. The deeper he went, the more wrong everything felt. The tunnel walls were damp, covered in black moss. Pipes above dripped water slowly, making a steady tick, tick, tick sound. Halfway in, his flashlight flickered. He tapped it. Nothing. Then suddenly it turned off. Dark. Total dark. Mark froze. His breath felt loud now. He could hear his heart pounding in his ears. The silence was too deep. It didn't feel empty. It felt watched. Then something whispered behind him. Not words, just breath, close to his neck. He turned around fast, swinging his flashlight. It flickered back on. Number 1 was there. But there were footprints on the floor. Wet footprints. Small ones, like a child's barefoot. Walking toward him from the deeper part of the tunnel, he backed away slowly, shining his light all around. The tunnel had no turns, no doors, nowhere to hide, but somehow someone had been there. Someone who made no sound. Mark ran. He came out of the tunnel shaking, sweating and scared. He checked his recorder for the first 3 minutes, just his breathing, his footsteps, his own voice. Then, static. Then, something strange. A voice, quiet, cold, repeating one sentence. We let them ride. We let them leave. Until one looked. Back that night, Mark posted about the voice on a private forum for strange phenomena. He got one reply from someone with the username Gray Operator. It said there was a boy. 1986. Same tunnel. He disappeared too. But his drawing was found. Look for it. Mark started searching newspaper archives. After 3 hours, he found it. A small article from June 1986. A 7-year-old boy named Elijah Porter vanished while on a school field trip. His entire class returned safely, except for him. No one saw him get off the bus. He wasn't on camera. Just missing. One strange detail stood out. A week later, his mother received a package. Inside was Elijah's school bag and a drawing. The drawing showed a dark tunnel. Inside it, there were gray figures tall, thin, with long arms and no faces. At the bottom of the paper, in a child's handwriting, were the words, "I looked back. They saw me." No one had ever solved the case. Mark drove to the boy's old house. It was abandoned now, covered in vines and broken windows. But the mailbox still had the name Porter on it. He pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside. Dust everywhere. Rotten wood. Silenced in the living room, old papers and photos were scattered. Most were useless. But under a broken drawer, he found something. A notebook. A journal. It was Elijah's simple words, written in a child's hand. "We go through the tunnel every day. I see shadows. Sometimes they wave. I waved back once. That night, I heard knocking at my window. Mom didn't believe me." The last page had one final message, written in darker ink. "Don't look back inside the tunnel. They wait for that." Mark closed the journal. A chill passed through his chest. That night, he couldn't sleep again. He kept thinking about the voice in the tunnel, about the drawing, the child's warning. At 2:11 a.m. his phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. A whisper came through. "You entered. Now you're marked." Then silence. His lights went out again. The air in his room turned cold. very cold. He rushed to the window. Nothing. But then, on the street corner, just under the street lamp, he saw it. A tall, gray figure, no face, watching, still, waiting. Mark couldn't breathe. He stood frozen at the window, staring at the tall, gray figure under the street lamp. It didn't move. I didn't blink. It didn't breathe. Just stood there, watching. Its body was too long, two still arms hanging. Down past its knees, where a face should be, there was nothing, only smooth, pale skin. The figure stood in the cold night air for what felt like hours. Then, without taking a single step, it vanished like smoke in the wind. Mark backed away from the window, heart pounding, mind racing. "What does it want?" he whispered. Already knew the answer. He looked back. He went into the tunnel. He was marked. The next morning, Mark tried to act normal. He drank coffee, wrote a few notes, and tried to convince himself it was all in his head. But something had changed. Every mirror in his house now reflected something wrong. When he looked into the bathroom mirror, the room behind him was darker. When he looked into his hallway mirror, his own reflection was a second slower, blinking late. Turning late, staring too long, and when he turned away from the bedroom mirror, he saw it. For a second, just behind him, that tall gray shape, watching, waiting, then gone again. He was being followed, but not in the normal way. It was like they could bend light, twist, sound, appear, and disappear inside time itself. He had read about creatures like this on deep web forums, shadow walkers, the forgotten. Echoes from a time before humans existed. But this wasn't just some creepypasta story. This was real, and it started at Black Hollow Tunnel. Mark needed answers. He reached out to Gray Operator, the user who had warned him earlier. To his surprise, he got a reply within minutes. "Meet me at 9 p.m. Old power station. Come alone." Mark didn't know what to expect. He packed a flashlight, a small camera, and a recorder. He also took a knife knot that he believed it would help. But it felt better than being empty-handed. The old power station stood about 2 miles from the tunnel. It was shut down 20 years ago after a fire. Most of it was rusted metal, broken glass, and silence. Mark arrived at 9 sharp dot inside the air. It was cold and thick. Smelled like wet wires and old dust. Single light was glowing from a room at the back. He stepped in. There was a man sitting on a chair, middle-aged, tired, eyes, pale skin, long coat, and a missing left hand. "You're Mark," the man said without looking up. "Yes." "I was marked too," he said. Mark sat down slowly. The man's name was Tom Vexler. He had been an investigator back in 2002. There had been a case of a missing family. A car was found inside Black Hollow Tunnel, abandoned. No bodies. Number. Struggle, just gone. Tom had gone into the tunnel alone. Came out marked. He showed Mark his arm. Faint gray symbols were burned into his skin, almost like scars. Ancient twisted lines like writing. They don't like being seen. They take those who break the pattern. Mark asked, "What pattern?" Tom looked at him, eyes tired. "There's a rule, a balance. People are taken in small numbers. Never noticed. Never connected. But when someone survives, or when someone looks back like you did, the balance breaks. Then they follow." Mark told him about Elijah, the missing boy from 1986. Tom nodded. He was the first to break the pattern. He looked back. He saw them. Mark asked, "What do they want?" Tom's voice dropped. "Silence. Distance. They feed on moments. On fear. On forgotten things. They don't want to be known. They only take those who find them." Mark stood up. "There has to be a way to stop this." Tom sighed. "Maybe, but once you're marked, they never truly let you go." Before Mark could reply, all the lights flickered. Both men turned dot. The doorway, 3 gray figures stood, silent, tall, unmoving. Tom pulled a switch. The emergency light turned red. The figures didn't move, yet they're stronger in the dark, Tom whispered. "They follow shadows. They are shadows." He pulled something from his coat, a small device with a red core. This is the only thing that slows him down, he said. Old tech, recovered from a Cold War base. Runs on static and light pulses. Confuses them. The creatures started moving now, slowly gliding forward, their bodies floating just an inch above the floor. No sound, no footsteps. Tom turned on the device. High-pitched noise filled the room. The figures stopped. One of them twitched violently like a signal was jamming it. "Run!" Tom shouted. Mark didn't argue. He ran through the old halls back into the night. He didn't stop until he reached his car. From the distance, he saw a soft red glow behind him. And then darkness. The next day, Mark returned to the power station. Tom was gone. No blood. No body. No sign of struggle. Only the device was left. On the floor, burned out, still humming softly, but there was something new on the wall, written in ash, as if burned into the metal itself. "You saw us. You told others. Now the silence is broken." And underneath that, "Next, the bus will come for you." Mark stepped back. He heard a sound behind him. Honk. Honk. A familiar sound. He turned. A city bus was parked in the middle of the woods. Route 17. Lights on. Engine running, empty, waiting. Mark stared at the bus. It was parked deep in the woods. No roads nearby. No tire marks on the wet grass. It was impossible for it to be there, but it was. It's the same city bus. Route 17. The same license plate. Same dents near the back door. Lights on. Engine running. No driver, no passengers. And it was waiting. Mark stepped back, heart pounding. He could hear the hum of the engine. It's a soft buzz of the lights. It's a cold in the air wrapped around him like invisible fingers. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was a call. He didn't move. Not yet. Part of him wanted to run, but another part, something deep and quiet, was curious. Why him? Why now? The bus door hissed open. He felt a gust of freezing air hit his face. The inside was dark, even though the bus was full of lights. He could see the outlines of the seats, and something else, shadows. Moving shadows, sitting in the seats. Even though no one was there, he pulled out his phone to record, but the screen turned black. Dead. No matter how much he pressed the buttons, it didn't respond. He reached into his jacket and clicked on his audio recorder. A red light blinked. It was working. Now that was something. Mark took one careful step forward, then another. The wind picked up around him. He could hear something faint whispers, not words. Just sounds like breath and wind and broken voices layered over each other. Then he heard it again. The whisper, the same one from the tunnel. "We let them ride. We let them leave." Till one looked back. He froze. "Who are you?" Mark said out loud. Silence, then dash movement. Something inside the bus stood up, but he couldn't see it, only the shape. The shadow. It walked from the back of the bus, slowly coming closer to the door. Mark didn't wait. He ran through the trees. Heart slamming in his chest. Branches cut his arms. Mud soaked into his shoes. But he didn't stop. Behind him, he heard the bus door close. The engine roared. He turned once. The bus was driving not on a road. Not on any path. It was floating, tires just above the ground, rolling over dirt and roots and rocks as if it was moving through water. Following him, Mark ran until he reached the road. A car sped by normal life again. He waved, shouted. Driver stopped and picked him up. "Are you okay, man?" the driver asked. "You look like you saw a ghost." Mark didn't answer because it wasn't a ghost. It was something older than ghosts that night. Mark sat in his apartment, staring at the recorder. He played the audio back, the wind, the engine, the soft hiss of the door, then that whisper. Again, but something new was there too. At the end of the recording, a child's voice. Very quiet, almost scared. "Don't get on. Don't take the ride. They never bring you back." He paused the recording. Who was the child? Was it Elijah, the boy who vanished in 1986? He didn't know. But the voice was real. Suddenly, the lights in his apartment flickered again. His phone buzzed just once and a single, Notification appeared. Route 17. Next stop you. The screen went black. Mark felt his knees weaken. He had to find help. He had to find someone else who had seen the bus and survived. He remembered something. Tom Vexler said before disappearing. They don't like being studied, but some people. There was a woman, Dr. Hensley. She worked for the city's transport department back in the 90s. She saw something, then they shut her down. Mark started searching public archives, news sites, anything about Dr. Marion Hensley. Finally, he found an old article, City Investigation into Strange Events on Route 17. Dr. Hensley had filed a report about buses experiencing dimensional shifts, which was ignored. Weeks later, she went missing. But a few months after that, she was found alive but silent. She never spoke again. She lived in a care facility under state protection. Mark didn't wait. The next day, he went to the facility listed in the article, a quiet place outside the city. He pretended to be a relative. Wasn't hard, they barely checked. An old nurse guided him to her room. She doesn't talk, the nurse warned. Just stares at the wall all day. Been like that for years. Mark stepped inside. Dr. Marion Hensley sat in a chair by the window. Her eyes were open, but unfocused. Her hair was white now, skin thin and pale, but her hands were moving, slowly drawing something on the table with her finger. A pattern. Circles. Spirals. The symbol Mark had seen in Elijah's notebook. The one Tom Vexler had burned into his arm. Mark whispered, "You saw them too, didn't you?" She didn't move. He reached into his bag and placed a photo on the table. Printed still frame from the tunnel security footage. The empty bus. Coming out, no driver. She looked at it. Her hand stopped moving. Then, her mouth opened. Dry. Weak. But she spoke. Just one sentence. "You can't run from A." Mark sat in the dark, shaking. Outside, the night was quiet, too quiet. Okay? But that single sound still echoed in his ears. A distant bus horn. One long, low honk. He hadn't imagined it. He knew that now, and something told him this was the sound every victim had heard before they disappeared. A soft warning, or maybe a final goodbye. He closed his journal, locked it, and placed it in a steel box. He had one goal now, to destroy the connection, to erase himself from the bus's path, but deep inside, he feared it was already too late. The next morning, Mark drove across the city to visit a man named Jonah Dyer. Jonah was a conspiracy researcher, an ex-bus mechanic who had worked on Route 17's vehicles for nearly 2 decades. Before suddenly retiring, Mark found him living alone in a small cabin near the old industrial district. At first, Jonah refused to open the door. "I don't talk about Route 17, he said through the chain lock. No one should. Mark held up the printout of a photo one from the surveillance camera that captured the empty bus exiting black. Hollow tunnel? Jonah opened the door. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands shook. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Jonah whispered. Mark nodded. Jonah sat him down and poured them both a cup of thick black coffee. He spoke in a low voice. "Glancing at the door and windows often, they think it's just a haunted route," Jonah said. "But it's older than the road. Older than the city." Mark asked. "What is it then?" Jonah looked at him. "It's a traveler," he said. "Not a bus. Not really. Something that moves between moments. It passes through time. Memory, even death. It takes people because that's what it does." Mark leaned forward. "Takes them where?" Jonah's voice lowered further, to a place out of time. A place between now and never. Mark tried to understand. "Like another dimension?" Jonah nodded. "Yes. Or a prison, a feeding ground. I don't know. But once you ride, you're erased. Not just from Earth, from existence. Time bends around that bus. No record, no memory. Even your family forgets you. It's like you were never born." Mark felt his blood turn cold. Jonah handed him something. A folder worn, water-damaged, full of old papers and photos. "These are all the people I tried to warn. All of them gone now. Look at the dates." Mark flipped through it. Every photo had a pimped. Some were from the 1950s, some from the 1920s, but 2 were even older. One from 1893, showing a blurry image of what looked like a wooden cart with strange symbols. And another from 1811, showing a hand-drawn sketch of a black carriage surrounded by tall, faceless shapes. They saw it too, Jonah whispered. It's been changing shape over centuries, always blending in, always hiding in plain sight. In 1800, it was a horse cart. In 1950, it was a trolley. And now it's a city bus. Mark stared at the sketch from 1811. In the corner, a shaky hand had written, "The wagon stops for no man, but always knows your name." He felt sick. "Can it be stopped?" Mark asked. Jonah didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Only once did someone escape it. In 1944, a woman. Her name was Lenora Page. The bus took her, but she came back. Changed, shaking but alive." Mark's heart skipped. "Where is she?" Jonah handed him a card, an old address, a care home. She was still alive. Somehow, Mark didn't waste time. By evening, he arrived at the address, a quiet, ivy-covered building near the countryside. The receptionist led him to room 6. Lenora Page was 98 years old, small, silent. But when Mark entered the room, she looked straight at him. "You've seen the door open?" she said. Mark froze. "Yes." She smiled weakly. "They always open it the same way, softly, kindly, as if you're being offered a gift." He sat down beside her. "You wrote it?" he asked. She nodded slowly. In 1944, it came as a red war truck. "I was 17. I thought I was dreaming. I climbed in. There were people inside. But their eyes were wrong. Too wide, too deep. Blinked. Suddenly, the stars outside the windows were moving backward." Mark leaned closer. "They took me to a place without time," she said. "No clocks, no sky. Just endless light. And shadows moving across it. They watched us, but didn't speak." "Why you?" Mark asked. Lenora looked out the window. "I asked too many questions. I wrote about strange deaths during the war. People disappearing from locked rooms. I touched their path. That's all it takes." "How did you get out?" Mark asked. She paused. "One of them. Let me go." "Why?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "Because I remembered something they couldn't erase. My mother's voice. A name. A song. That's why I keep singing." She began humming, softly. A lullaby. Mark recorded it. "You must remember something," she told him. "Before it comes again. Something that can't be taken from you. That's the only way you stay you." That night, Mark returned home. He played the recording again and again. The lullaby echoed in his room. He wrote his full name on every mirror, every wall. He spoke his parents' names out loud, repeated his old school address, his childhood best friend, his favorite food, his birthday, because if the bus was going to take him, he wanted something it couldn't erase. At 3:07 a.m., his apartment lights turned off. He heard the sound again. Honk. Honk. And outside his window, parked on the empty street, 17, lights on, engine running, door open, waiting. Mark stared through the window, his breath fogging the glass. There it was again. Route 17, parked outside in the dead of night, headlights glowing. Engine rumbling softly, like a heartbeat in the dark. The same scratches on the side, same faded number on the front glass. The door was open, no one around. No driver, no passengers. It was waiting for him, just like it had waited for all the others. Mark stepped back from the window. He tried to calm his breathing. He told himself, don't go near it. Don't open the door. Don't ride. But inside, something pulled him, a quiet voice. A whisper from somewhere. Deep in his thoughts, "You're already marked. You might as well see where it leads." Mark grabbed the recorder, his journal, and the lullaby recording Lenora Page had sung to him. Then he opened his front door. The night air was cold. Too cold for summer. It felt like winter had wrapped itself around his neighborhood, each step he took toward the bus felt heavier than the last. The ground almost pulled him back, but he kept going. The door of the bus hissed wider as he approached. Then he stepped inside. The door closed behind. Instant silence. No city sounds, no wind, nothing, just silence. In the faint hum of something not quite mechanical, Mark looked around. The bus looked normal, but only at first. Each seat was filled with shadows, not people, just the outlines of people. No faces, no eyes, it's just the shapes of them, sitting still, some looking out the windows, some facing straight ahead. No one spoke. Slowly walked down the aisle. He didn't dare touch them. His feet echoed on the floor, but the bus made no other sound. It wasn't moving yet. It felt like it was. Outside the windows, there was nothing but fog. Thick gray fog that stretched forever. Mark took his seat near the middle. He placed his recorder on his lap, pressed record, when whispered, "I am Mark Teller. I am alive. I was born on July 9th, 1993. My mother's name is Maria. My father's name is Daniel. I remember. And the bus moved. No sound, no engine roar. It just glided. The fog outside began to shift. Colors passed by strange, broken flashes of red, green, and blue. Then came the shapes, buildings melting, trees floating, stars falling. Mark tried not to look. It hurt his eyes. Time wasn't working anymore. He pulled out his phone. No signal. The screen showed 0 o'clock, no date, just a black clock. Then someone spoke, a voice behind him, but he was sure the bus was empty. Only shadows. "Why do you ride?" the voice asked. Mark turned slowly. One of the shadows was now clearer, more human, a woman, pale eyes glowing faintly. Her face was familiar. It was Elijah Porter's mother, the woman from the 1986 case, except she hadn't aged. She looked just like she had in the photo from decades ago. "You shouldn't have boarded," she whispered. "Now you belong to the loop."
What?
Mark asked. "What loop?" She pointed to the window. Outside, through the fog, saw something terrifying. Himself, standing on the street, staring at the bus from his apartment window. This was the moment from last night. The honk, the decision, the step forward. It was happening again. Then the scene shifted. He saw his childhood home. Himself as a boy, laughing, then crying, then gone. Then a hospital room, then a birthday party. Then darkness, memories, time, all folding in on each other. Mark clutched the journal to his chest. He played the lullaby. The soft hum echoed through the bus. The shadows began to react. Some hissed. Some leaned away. Others shook violently. The woman, Elijah's mother, smiled sadly. "That song, you brought it in, doesn't belong here," Mark shouted. "I don't belong here either." And the lights burst. Every bulb on the bus exploded with a loud crack. The shadows screamed, but not with voices. Their faces stretched. Their mouths opened wider than natural. The air filled with static and pressure. Mark gripped the seat. The bus was tearing apart. The windows shattered outward. The fog rushed in like a wave, and then silence. Mark woke up in darkness. He was lying on a cold metal floor. The air smelled like dust oil. In rain, he sat up slowly. He was no longer on the bus. He was inside Black Hollow Tunnel alone. It was night again. His watch showed the correct time, but he didn't remember exiting the bus. He stood up, looked around. No shadows, no sounds. But as he turned toward the tunnel entrance, he saw something scratched into the wall in shaky handwriting. The ride never ends. It only resets. Beneath that, carved deeper, "You can walk for now, but the bus remembers you." Mark stumbled out of the tunnel when he reached the road. 3 days Mark had been gone for 3 whole days, but to him, it felt like just one long night. The police took him to the station. They asked questions. Lots of them. Where had he been? Was he in danger? Did he run away? Couldn't answer honestly. Who would believe him if he said he boarded a ghost bus that traveled through time and erased people from history? So he stayed quiet. Said he'd been walking, confused, lost. They released him after a few hours, but Mark wasn't the same. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. When he closed his eyes, he saw the tunnel, the bus, the shadows. But worst of all, he heard the voice. Again, the loop always comes back. He returned home to find his apartment exactly as he left it, except something was wrong. His mirrors were all blank, like someone had wiped them clean. But not just the glass. The reflection itself was gone. He stood in front of the mirror, but saw nothing. He waved his hand. No reflection, no shadow. It was like he didn't exist. He opened his journal. The name he had written, the memories, the list of things to remember were all gone. The pages were blank. Even the recording of Lenora's lullaby was just static. Now, Mark whispered to himself, they're still pulling me in. He packed his things and left that night. 2 days later, Mark found himself driving far outside the city, toward an abandoned train station mentioned in Jonah's old file. The place was called Pine Bridge Depot, and according to a report from 1963, a freight train had passed through the area without a conductor, carrying no cargo, and but dripping fresh rainwater even, though it hadn't rained in weeks. Mark believed. It was connected. He arrived just before sunset. The station was broken. Half covered in ivy, the old metal signs rusted. Tracks faded into tall grass. But as he walked down the platform, he noticed bus tracks, not train tracks. Bus tire marks. And beside the wall of the depot, someone had scratched another message. You escaped once. The loop is correcting itself. Mark froze. He was being pulled back. He had no doubt now. He hadn't escaped the bus. He had only been spat out. The ride wasn't over. It just needed time to reset. Suddenly a loud honk echoed. Across the forest, Mark turned sharply. No vehicle, but a strange cold settled around him. The air smelled like burnt wires and wet steel. He ran into the depot. Deeper flashlight flickering inside. The building was empty except for one thing. A photograph lying on the floor. It showed Mark, sitting in a bus seat, staring straight. Ahead, behind him, shadowy figures. On the back of the photo were words, "Second ride, no exits this time." He dropped it and backed away. That night, he stayed in a small motel nearby, locked the doors, closed the blinds. At exactly 3:17 a.m., he woke to the sound. Honk, hiss. The motel room was dark, but the window was glowing. He pulled the curtain aside. The bus was outside, not just outside his window. On the second floor, floating. Its wheels turned slowly in the air. Its door opened. Mark screamed. Suddenly, he was back inside it. No memory of walking in. No memory of touching the door. Just in, the same seats, the same shadows. This time, though, the bus was moving faster. Mark couldn't breathe. The air was thin, almost liquid. He gripped the seat in front of him, trying not to collapse. The shadows started whispering words in dead languages, ancient things. Echoes from before time, then came the faces. The walls of the bus flickered like screens, faces of missing people, all of them blinking, crying, repeating words Mark couldn't hear. He saw Elijah Porter, Lenora Page. Even Jonah's photo was there now. They looked at him, and then the faces turned to his own. Mark, at different ages, as a child, as a teen, as an old man frail, broken, weeping inside a moving bus. The loop wasn't just pulling him in, it was showing him what was to come. Mark screamed, "No, I am still me, I remember." But his voice echoed strangely, delayed like sound underwater. He played the lullaby again, but the device sparked and melted. Time cracked. The windows showed flashes of history, dinosaurs, ancient temples, the fall of cities, the burning of skies, and through it all, the same vehicle shape repeated, sometimes a cart, sometimes a train, sometimes a jet, always the same thing, always collecting. Mark saw it now. The bus wasn't a machine, it was a being. A living, intelligent, predatory force that fed on human memory, time, and presence. A cosmic scavenger. And Mark had entered its bloodstream suddenly. The bus jerked violently, The shadows screamed in unison. Outside the windows, the fog cleared. For one moment, Mark saw a platform, a station, but not one made of stone or metal. It was made of light. Floating in space, huge, glowing with symbols, and millions of human figures waiting there. All transparent, all forgotten. A cosmic waiting room. The bus stopped. The door opened. One by one, the shadows began exiting. Mark stood, trying to resist, but his feet moved on their own. He walked toward the door. As he reached the edge, a hand grabbed him from behind. Jonah, standing in the aisle. Face pale, eyes wild. "You're not done fighting yet," Jonah growled. "There's a third ride. One last chance." Mark blinked. "You're alive." "No. I'm what's left." Jonah pulled him back and shoved a metal rod into Mark's hand. "Find the core. Destroy it, or you'll ride forever." Then Jonah vanished. The bus jellied. Sparks flew. The door slammed shut, and Mark felt himself thrown into nothingness. He landed hard, a desert, empty dark sky above. No stars, only a distant sound. Honk, honk, honk. And the loop began again. Mark's body hit the ground with a thud. Dust rose around him. He coughed, trying to breathe. His arms shook as he pushed himself up from the cracked earth. Where was he now? There was no sky above him, just darkness. No stars, no moon, not even clouds. Only a strange humming sound in the distance. A deep rhythmic pulse, like the beating heart of something ancient and alive. He stood slowly. Around him stretched an endless desert, but not made of sand, ash. Gray soft cold ash that crumbled under his feet. The air smelled burned, like an engine that had run too long. Mark clutched the metal rod Jonah had given him before vanishing. It was heavy, but warm to the touch. It's almost like it had its own heartbeat. He turned in every direction. Nothing, but then he heard it again. Honk. Honk. His SSSS. From behind a distant hill, a shape began to rise. The bus. But this time, it looked different. It wasn't metal anymore. It looked alive, pulsing, shifting, as if breathing through its windows. Its wheels floated inches above the ground. The door opened with a sound like 1,000 whispers. Mark stepped back, ready to run. But then he heard a voice, a child's voice, calling from inside the bus. "Help, please, someone help me." He froze. It was a girl, number 12. Older than 10, her voice trembled. Real, human, not like the shadows. Without thinking, Mark ran toward the bus. If someone else was trapped inside, he couldn't leave them. He climbed the steps, and the door closed behind him. Inside was silent. No shadows. This time, just rows of empty seats. And at the far end, a little girl curled up, arms hugging her knees. She looked up as Mark approached. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm Mark. What's your name?" "I don't remember," she said softly. Mark's heart dropped. She was fading, just like the others. A victim of the loop. He knelt beside her. "I'll get you out," he said. "I promise." But as he reached out to help her stand, the lights inside the bus flickered. Then the walls began to twist. Not move twists like they were made of cloth. The windows showed no world. Just darkness. Liquid black. The girl screamed. "It's coming. It's waking up." Mark turned. "What's waking up?" Then he saw it. From the center of the bus, a hole opened in the floor. Black mist rose from it, swirling fast. From that pit, something crawled out. Not a shadow, not a human, a creature. It had no face. Its skin was made of mirrors, each one reflecting Mark's face at different stages of his life. Laughing, crying, screaming. Its arms stretched long, thin, with claws that sparked like metal. It was the core, the brain of the bus. The being behind all the vanishings. Mark backed up, shielding the girl. The creature pointed at him with a shaking finger. "You, at your seat." Its voice was not a voice. It echoed inside Mark's skull, deep and cold. You are the final passenger. Mark gripped the metal rod tighter. I'm not a passenger anymore, he charged. The rod glowed as he raised it high and struck the creature in the chest. The impact exploded with light. The creature screamed not with sound, but with silence so loud it made Mark's ears bleed. The mirrors on its body shattered. Each broken piece fell to the floor, showing a different memory. Not just Mark's, but thousands of people. All those who had disappeared, the girl cried out, shielding her face. The bus shook violently. Seats flew into the air. The walls melted. The lights died. Mark kept hitting the creature again and again. Each strike lit up the inside of the bus with white fire. Finally, with one last scream, the creature collapsed into black dust. The bus stopped moving then. Stillness. The girl lay beside Mark, shaking, but alive. Outside, through the shattered windows, the desert of ash began to fade, and light returned. Mark stood, trembling. The door of the bus opened again, and outside was the real world. A road. Forest. A rising sun. Mark looked at the girl. Come on, it's over. She took his hand. They walked out together. The next morning, police found them walking barefoot along Route 17. Mark was weak. The girl couldn't remember her name, but she was real, breathing, alive. Doctors said they'd both suffered trauma, hallucinations, memory loss, but Mark knew the truth. The loop was broken, or at least paused. For now, he returned home weeks later. Quiet. No more voices. No bus outside. His window. The girl was adopted by a family in Vermont. Mark sent letters. Mark had hoped the silence would last. Weeks had passed since he and the girl, who now answered to the name Emily, were found wandering the roadside. He told no one the full story. Who would believe it? A living bus that swallowed people and erased them from existence, that hunted souls across time? No, he kept it to himself. Let the doctors call it trauma. Let the investigators call it stress-induced hallucinations. But Mark remembered. He remembered everything. The mirrors, the creature made of memory. The voice that echoed inside his head, whispering final passenger. At first, he tried to live normally. He got a job again, simple desk work. Rented a small apartment near a quiet street. Even tried going to therapy, but it didn't help, because at night the dreams returned. He dreamt of roads that went in circles, highways that never ended, signs that pointed nowhere, and always that sound. Honk. Honk. His SSS. One night the sound wasn't in his dream. It was in the real world. Mark sat up in bed, heart pounding. Went to the window slowly, pulling back the curtain with shaking hands. The street was empty, quiet, but the air. It smelled wrong. Burnt metal, static. It's the same as before. He closed the curtain. Later that week, he noticed something else. People were going missing again. Not in his town at first, but online, news stories popped up. Teenager in Kansas, last seen walking home from school. Couple in Oregon, their car found running, but doors wide open. A city bus in Maine that vanished from its route for 5 minutes and returned missing. 3 passengers. It was happening again. He found Emily's contact and called. No answer. The second time her foster mother picked up. She's been quiet lately, the woman said. Doesn't talk much. Says she hears buses in her sleep. Mark felt cold all over. He made a decision. He bought a train ticket and headed north to Vermont. When he arrived at the foster home, the sky was cloudy, windy, like a storm was coming. Emily was waiting for him on the front steps, hugging her. Knees. She looked up as he walked toward her. You heard it too, didn't you? She asked quietly. Mark nodded. It remembers us, she whispered. It's calling us back. He didn't know what to say, so he sat beside her. That night, he stayed in the guest room. God. He couldn't sleep. The wind outside howled like it was alive. Then came the knock. He opened the door. Emily stood there, pale, shaking. "I had a dream," she said. But it wasn't a dream. He followed her outside, to the backyard, and there it was. A mirror standing, alone in the grass. Tall, framed in silver. But it didn't show their reflection. It showed a road mark. Had seen before he stepped closer. The sound came again. Honk, honk. But not from behind him. From inside the mirror, a light flickered within. Then wheels appeared. In the front of the bus. It was coming through. Emily screamed. Mark grabbed her hand, but the mirror began to pull. Like gravity, they resisted, but the glass melted like water, and suddenly they were no longer in the yard. They were back inside the bus. But this time, it wasn't moving. It was waiting. The seats were all full, now full of people. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all staring forward. Blank faces, empty eyes. Some were young, some old, some from different time periods. Mark could tell from their clothes. And at the very front, behind the wheel, sat a shape. Not human. Not quite the creature from before either. It was evolving. Growing smarter, it turned its head, slowly to look at Mark and Emily. "You should not have left it," said voice like broken. "Radios and whispers, you are ours." Mark pulled Emily behind him. "We're not yours. Not anymore." The bus's lights turned red. The windows went black. The doors sealed shut. Emily cried. "It's feeding again. That's what this is. Harvest." Mark looked around. Passengers didn't move, but their eyes followed him. The air grew heavy, thicker, like liquid. Then the voices began. Not from the creature, but from the people. All at once. They spoke. "We were forgotten. We were left behind. We were erased. Now, so are you." Emily screamed. The seats twisted. The floor melted into shapes. And then, for a brief second, Mark saw something new. A door. Not the bus door. Something else. A crack in space. Way out. But it was closing. He ran toward it, dragging Emily. The creature howled. The mirrors shattered. He reached the crack through the metal rod at it. The light burst. Open Mark. Jumped, pulling Emily through. Everything went white, then dashed quiet. They woke up in the middle of a road. An empty road. No cars, no houses, just silence. Emily looked up. "Did we escape?" Mark didn't answer, because carved into the asphalt beneath them were words. They read, "You can exit the ride, but the road always leads back." Mark stood slowly, looking. At the sky, no stars, just clouds. In the distance, the faintest sound, honk, honk, and the loop was already turning again. Mark stood frozen in the middle of the road, eyes locked on the faded message carved into the cracked asphalt. "You can exit the ride, but the road always leads back." The air around him felt too still, too quiet-like. The entire world was holding its breath. Beside him, Emily slowly stood. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Mark, we're still in it, aren't we?" He didn't answer, because deep down he knew. The bus was gone. The creature destroyed or at least wounded, but something was still watching, still pulling strings. The road wasn't just part of the trap, was the trap. A system, a loop, stretching across time and space they had escaped. The vehicle, but not the ride. They began walking. No destination, no signs, no sound, except the crunch of gravel beneath their feet. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, it was hard to tell. The sky above remained a dull gray, like evening that never fully arrived. Then they saw a small diner up ahead, lights glowing in the distance. They approached cautiously. The sign above the door said Rosie's Highway Stop. It looked normal. Too normal. Emily stepped in first. Mark followed. Inside, the diner was clean, warm. A few people sat in booths, sipping coffee. Reading newspapers at the counter stood a tall woman in a red apron. She smiled. "You two look like you've come a long way," she said. "Take a seat." Mark and Emily exchanged a glance and sat down. Menus were already there. No prices. Just names like Route 66 Special, Vanishing Point Pancakes, and memory melt shake. It was all too strange. Then the woman returned, placing 2 cups of coffee on the table. On the house, she said. Mark didn't touch his. Where are we? She looked at him calmly. Nowhere you'd find on a map. Emily leaned forward. Are we still inside it? The loop? The woman's smile faded slightly. You're on the edge. Not in, not out, but it's close. It's never let's go easy. Mark finally asked, Who are you? She sighed and glanced around the diner. Everyone else inside was now frozen. Still, like statues? I'm Rosie. I keep this place for people like you. Mark tensed. What do you mean? Got too close. Who saw behind the curtain? Most don't make it here. Most disappear, piece by piece. But you too. You broke the pattern. You resisted. It's rare. Emily asked, Then how do we get out? Really out. Rosie leaned in. You can't escape a road that lives inside you. Mark's heart dropped. So we're trapped. No, she said softly. But it will always look for you. You must make a choice. Keep running or change the rules. Change how? Emily asked. Rosie reached behind the counter and pulled out a small metallic object. It looked like a miniature steering wheel, shimmering, glowing faintly with symbols neither of them recognized. This, Rosie said, lets you rewrite your path. Not escape it, but drive it yourself. You take control. You decide where it leads. But once you hold it, there's no going back. Mark stared at it. So did Emily. Will it stop the disappearances? Emily asked. The bus, the shadows, the creature. Rosie looked sad. Maybe, maybe not. But someone must hold the wheel. If not you, it finds someone else. Mark took the object in his hand. It was warm. Familiar, like it had always been. Waiting for him? I'll do it, he said. Emily's eyes widened. Mark, he looked at her. I'm not letting anyone else vanish. Not ever again, Rosie nodded. Then your road begins now. Suddenly the diner shook. The walls cracked. The frozen people dissolved into ash dot. The sky outside turned pitch black. Wind howled. Rosie stepped back, fading like smoke. Drive well, Mark, and remember, don't forget who you are. Mark opened his eyes. He was back on a bus. But this time, he was the one behind the wheel. Outside the windows, the world moved in slow motion. He saw roads that twisted through stars. Cities built inside comets. Shadows crawling along telephone poles. He looked in the rear view. Miro, the seats behind him were filled with people. Silent, lost, trapped, between moments. And Emily She was seated near the front, watching him, waiting Mark grip the wheel. Tightly, I'm not taking them to vanish, he said. I'm taking them home. The bus engine roared, and this time, the road did not lead in circles. It stretched forward, straight, true. And for the first time, under his control, across Earth, reports changed. Disappearances stopped. People who had vanished years ago began. Returning, confused, scared, but alive. Some spoke of strange tunnels. Some remembered red lights and metal walls. Others remembered nothing at all. And somewhere deep in the night, travelers on lonely highways sometimes saw a strange bus pass by empty. Glowing, silent, driven by a man with tired eyes and a steady grip on the wheel. Behind him sat a quiet girl, watching the stars. Because sometimes when a story ends, it just becomes the beginning of a new road.